The base was dressed in ceremony, white uniforms pressed to perfection, brass buttons
Captain?
catching the afternoon sun, and rows of chairs filled with officers, families, and dignitaries who had traveled from 3 different states to be there. The retirement ceremony of Vice Admiral Gerald Harmon was considered the most prestigious naval event of the year, 41 years of service being honored with medals, speeches, and applause. Every seat in the open-air pavilion was occupied. Every corner of the yard breathed with quiet reverence. When the order came from the ceremony director for all attendees to be seated, the crowd obeyed as one body. Chairs scraped softly against concrete, silk dresses rustled, and the hum of whispered conversations dissolved into respectful silence. All except one man, Vice Admiral Raymond Colt, a 3-star admiral with a chest full of decorations and a jaw carved from something that didn't bend easily, remained standing. His cap was tucked under his arm. His eyes were scanning the crowd, not with confusion, but with the slow, deliberate purpose of a man looking for something he feared he already knew was gone. The ceremony director leaned toward a junior officer and whispered. The junior officer whispered to someone else. Within moments, a soft ripple of awareness moved through the front rows. People began to follow the Admiral's gaze, trying to understand what he was searching for. A seat was empty. 3rd row, left side, aisle position. A chair with a small folded program resting on it, untouched. It belonged to Petty Officer First Class Darnell James. Everyone in that yard knew the name. Darnell had served under Colt 18 years ago. When Colt was just a commander and Darnell was a 22-year-old from rural Mississippi who had joined the Navy because he had no better idea, and a grandmother who told him the sea builds character. What the sea actually built in Darnell was discipline, humor, and a loyalty that most men spend lifetimes trying to manufacture. He wasn't decorated. He wasn't promoted fast. But he showed up every single day, with a steadiness that Colt had come to depend on in the way you depend on gravity. Years passed. Colt rose. Darnell stayed where he was, doing what he did, never complaining. When Colt received his first star, Darnell sent a handwritten card. When Colt's wife was in the hospital during that terrible winter, it was Darnell who arranged a meal train for the family without being asked. When Colt stood before a congressional committee and his career nearly collapsed under a scandal that wasn't his doing, it was Darnell who found a witness, made 3 phone calls, and saved a man's legacy at the cost of his own promotion. Colt never forgot that. He also never said thank you. Not properly, not in the way the debt required. There had always been another crisis, another deployment, another reason to let the moment pass. And now Darnell was not in his chair, and Admiral Raymond Colt was not going to sit down until he understood why. A young ensign approached and spoke quietly into Colt's ear. The Admiral's expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes shifted, like a light extinguishing and then reigniting at a lower, steadier flame. Darnell had been hospitalized the previous night. A heart episode. Nothing fatal, they said, but he was in a bed 12 miles away when he should have been in that chair. Colt turned to the ceremony director. He did not shout. He did not make a scene. He simply said, in a voice that carried farther than he intended, "We are going to him." The director blinked. "Sir, the Vice Admiral's ceremony—" "The Vice Admiral," Colt said, "is a friend of mine, and he would agree." He looked toward Gerald Harmon, who was seated on the dais in full-dress uniform. Harmon had heard everything. He stood slowly, a 63-year-old man who had survived 2 deployments and 1 marriage, and he nodded once. Just once. That was enough. What happened next was not in any program or itinerary. A 3-star admiral, a retiring vice admiral, and approximately 40 members of the United States Navy walked off that base, loaded into vehicles, and drove 12 miles to a regional hospital on a Tuesday afternoon. They filled the hallway outside room 214 in a way that made the nurses uncertain whether to call security or stand at attention. Darnell James, lying in a hospital bed with monitors beeping and an IV in his arm, looked up when the door opened and saw Raymond Colt walk in wearing full dress uniform, medals and all. Darnell's first words were, You didn't have to do this. Colt sat down in the chair beside the bed, the chair he had refused to take for 3 hours, and said, "No, I did. I just took me 18 years to figure out when." The ceremony happened there, in room 214, with a nurse holding a camera and Gerald Harmon reading the words he'd written for a pavilion full of people. They pinned a commendation to Darnell's hospital gown, the kind that can't be dry cleaned, and nobody cared. Later, when reporters asked Admiral Colt why he had